everybody, and welcome to another episode of Sasquatch Out of the Shadows Live. I'm your host, as always, Alex Pedikov. I hope you're all doing well on this Monday night here. Just getting settled in, getting the show ready to get started. So for folks that are maybe just tuning in or haven't seen the show before, this is a show where we discuss the topics of Sasquatch, Bigfoot, as well as cryptozoology, usually some other topics as well that might kind of come along the sides, such as filmmaking and nature and that sort of stuff. All encompassing, I suppose. But we have a long catalog of shows. This is show 92, I believe. So we're almost at 100, almost there. 2 years after starting the stream, almost at 100 shows, which is pretty interesting, pretty awesome. So there's a link in the description below to check out previous episodes that are available to watch. So we've got a long catalog, like I mentioned. Take a moment here to say hey to everybody before I have a few announcements. Got a lot of people in the chat. Hello to everybody tuning in. Let's see, we've got Ryan Carboy says, love the work you're doing, Alex. Big fan, brother. Cheers. Well, appreciate it. Thank you so much. You guys make it enjoyable, and I enjoy doing it. Cindy Finn, how you doing? B. Lynn as well. Hey, Alex. Good evening, everyone. How's it going? Donald Fuller, hello. How you doing, Donald? We have Angela Nolan as well in the chat. Carrick, Crash Course Cryptozoology, good friend of the show, of course. Go check out his channel, and he's also starting a new channel, or has started a new channel, rather, about voices of cryptozoology. It's almost like a debate sort of thing, having people debate different ideas. The first video he had, Tobias Wayland and Adam Benedict, they were talking about flesh and blood Bigfoot versus paranormal Bigfoot. So go check that out. Just go check out Crash Course Cryptozoology either way. We have My Eyes as well. Peggy Curtis, how you doing? Kevin Hamilton, of course. How you doing, Kevin, up there in Canada? Hello, kids. Happy Monday to all of you. Absolutely. We've got our friend New Hampshire Sasquatch. What's going on, man? Hope you're doing well. Let's see, who else do we have? Stevie B. Hey there, Stevie. Roger Blair, howdy from Kentucky. How's it going? We've got Fruit Loop Films as well. Paul Daglian, how you doing? And if there's anyone else I missed, there's Joe Turry. How's it going, Joe? And we've got Tom Wilson, New Hampshire represent, and Lycidic Spedbug, and Jay Fritz as well. So I just want to say hey to everyone. I know I usually do that a little later in the show, so figured I'd do it right at the start. So I hope everyone's doing well. Just a couple of announcements. There is a link posted below for Leon Thompson's GoFundMe account. So for folks that might not know, some folks probably know, a friend of the show, Leon Thompson. I've had him on in the past, and he's been pretty vocal in the sort of Bigfoot research world in the past few years. A really nice guy. Has unfortunately had a serious kind of, I don't know if it's a sickness exactly, but he had an issue that put him in the ICU for quite a while, and he's doing better now. From what I've heard, he's recovering a little bit. But there's actually a GoFundMe that someone close to him is doing to raise money to be able to pay for his rent. He has a long kind of recovery ahead of him, so we wish him obviously the best. And if you guys can support, there's the link. It's the first thing in the description below. If you click right down there, it should be in all caps as well, so you should be able to see it. And I'm going to double check to make sure it's there. Yep, it's right there. It takes you straight to that GoFundMe. So if you have a moment to check it out to spare, I'm sure that could come in handy for our friend Leon as he recovers and really has been through a lot. So anything would be appreciated in that sense. So, all right. Well, moving on. We're just waiting for our guest here tonight, which will be pretty interesting. We had a pretty good conversation last week. And I'm going to read the intro to Stacy. But first, I want to show just a quick video here. It's the new intro for Bigfoot Beyond the Trail, or Beyond the Trail. I want to see what you guys think about it. It was just put together recently, so I'll play that right now. Let me see what you guys think about that. Let's see. I'm going to play it and get out of the way here. So here you go. So that was kind of cool. That was put together by Santino, Small Town Monsters. Just sort of the intro for our, obviously, Beyond the Trail series. We just kind of finished it up a few days ago with that intro, so I wanted to show that. I thought it's going to be pretty cool. It'll go, obviously, sort of at the intro to some of the videos coming up. But moving on here, we're going to announce our guest. Obviously, as the title says, it's Stacy Brown Jr. So Stacy Brown is hailing from the swamps of North Florida and is a filmmaker and a skunk ape researcher. While watching Unsolved Mysteries in the early 90s, Stacy came across a segment on the Florida Skunk Ape and immediately became fascinated with the thought of a hairy monster running around the woods in his neighborhood. Over the next 31 years, he would dig through the libraries for information, speak with hundreds of eyewitnesses, and even spend countless hours in the swamp in search of the creature. On November 6, 2011, his work would finally pay off. That night, he would have his very first sighting of a skunk ape along the Apalachicola River. Months later, his father, Stacy Sr, would capture what is considered to be the best piece of footage of a skunk ape or Bigfoot-type creature on a thermal in North Florida with a flir camera while camping out one night with his son. Since then, you might have seen Stacy on Finding Bigfoot, Strange Evidence, Travel Channel, and Spike TV's $10 million Bigfoot bounty, in which he was awarded the $100,000 research grant. Was the winner of that show, actually. In 2019, Stacy released a film documenting the best evidence and stories from his years of searching, titled The Skunk Ape Lives, which is available on YouTube now. So we've got a lot to talk about, from skunk apes to filmmaking. So without further ado, let's just bring Stacy right on in.
What's up, brother?
Hey, how's it going, man?
It's going.
Sorry to make you rush to get back.
I don't know what happened. I thought it was at 8:30. I was like, just got done working out. I'm like, I'm good. I got time. I'm going to swing by the Winn-Dixie real quick, pick up a chicken, and then I got your text. I'm like, oh my God. And then I reviewed the text. I'm like, damn, why did I do this?
No worries. It happens. I'm usually late. I try to get in 3 or 4 minutes before the show kind of starts. And usually my guest is already there. So I've already had him waiting, but luckily that wasn't the case today. But anyway, man, yeah, nice to have you on.
Yeah, bud. I appreciate you letting me spew for a little while.
For sure. That's what we do. We do a lot of spewing. I mean, that's what the Bigfoot subject is. A lot of it is just talking, because we don't have a whole lot to work with aside from that. And obviously it's fun to have a sort of meeting of the minds. So, we recently got to hang out in Florida, obviously up towards your neck of the woods there in the Panhandle in North Florida. Beautiful, beautiful area. And we did a recap a few weeks ago with Eli and Tate, and had James Brost come on for a little bit talking about that weird thing that they kind of experienced out there. So cool area. But I read a little bit in your intro. Obviously, you were interested in this topic kind of since you were a kid. And what was it that originally got you wanting to do the research? Was it just you kind of did the armchair stuff, or what was your first kind of time going out there doing actual, or getting out in the field, let's say?
Well, so like when I was in first grade, me and my buddies were out in the woods looking for Bigfoot, right? It wasn't a professional thing, obviously. It was 6, 7-year-old kids running out in the woods, following some game trails, hearing something, and then running out of the woods as fast as you can, screaming because Bigfoot's here to get us. So that's what it started out like. But then, life just happened, and I got away with it. Wasn't a thought. And me and my dad had started going camping. We were setting up trail cams and stuff. We were just in the hopes that there was a Bigfoot. You know what I mean? We had bought some pheromone chips. It was honestly more of just a way to hang out.
Right.
Spend
some time with your dad. Why not?
Right. And then Finding Bigfoot aired. It was their second episode. They were in Florida, and the lady had a handprint on the inside of her door. So me and my bass player were like, hey, let's go. Originally, it was me and my dad were going to go, but then he got sick and couldn't make it. So my bass player went with me, and that's when I had my first real encounter. You know what I mean? My first real look into, or like just, wow, okay, this thing's real. So then I get home, and I'm like looking on the Bigfoot forums.
Right.
And I don't know any of the listeners that's been on that website, but
is it still active? I mean, I know back in the day, I don't know if forums are really a thing anymore. I haven't been on one in a while.
Yeah, right. So looking at it from a sane person's point of view, and that's me saying that.
Yeah.
Right. So these people attacked each other, tearing each other down. You know, it was a negative, toxic platform. And I just thought it was a joke. You know, I thought everybody in the discussion was a joke, with the exception of a few people. You had Derek Randalls, who was like really one of the only people that I respected. You know, because everybody else, seriously, you know, they couldn't work together. Like, what was the issue? I got my group, and now I got my group, but my group better not talk to your group. Why are you going and working with that group? You know, it's just like,
a lot has changed since then, obviously, right? My eyes roll.
no, you know what
exactly.
I mean?
No,
So
it's like
it's like now it's Facebook groups,
yeah,
and
sure.
people. It's just society. I used to think it was just a Bigfoot thing, but then you look at politics today, and I won't get on politics, but everybody picks a team,
right?
you know what I
Well,
mean?
we're tribal,
And
man. People are tribal,
exactly.
right? That's whether you're on the Bigfoot tribe side or whatever, flesh and blood, woo, whatever it is. I mean, everyone picks a side. Unfortunately, it's the way it goes.
And even when you're presented with bullshit and you know that your side is wrong, you stick to it. Like, you there, you know what I mean?
Hard to admit you're wrong.
Yeah, you just lied on the stand, I guess, and so now you gotta stick with it because you don't want to face a perjury charge or whatever. But it's really non-productive. And so while I'm looking at that, I'm like, first of all, don't none of these dudes know what the fuck they're talking about. To be quite frankly, like they're none of them are actually trying to look for this creature as if it's a animal. Even though you have the majority of them are like, oh, this is a primate. Nobody, because I had gotten a copy of that little BFRO book, the little manual they give out before you go on a trip.
Right.
And just reading over that, it was like, y'all have no idea what you're doing. You shouldn't be in the woods. You're probably going to get hurt. Like, like that was my thought. It's like, why are these people even going into the woods? You know, so I thought the whole Bigfoot field was a joke.
Right.
Still do, but I mean,
yeah,
first,
I mean, it's hard to argue with that at this point. I mean,
yeah, you know, when you're an outsider looking in, and now I'm ankle deep into this, it's sad. It's that you can't work together. Like, why is there not a collective that everybody belongs to? You know what I'm saying? Where we share data.
I mean, it's just impossible. I think if Bigfoot was proven to be real tomorrow, we'd still have the same things going on. You know, people would maybe have a little bit more of an inflated ego, but the divisions would still be there.
And it's really, it's my plea to the Bigfoot community. I say this every time I go out anywhere. Put your shit in the back seat, bud. You know what I mean? Let's. What do y'all know? Like, so we found some tracks in 2016, right? And then I was given like a stupid Bigfooter of the Year award. Not something you want to get. Like, honestly, you would think people be like, hey, cool, he's doing some really good work. No. Like, not the worst person ever, blah, 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 blah. You know what I mean? You got an award for something dumb. And then everybody jumps you. But there was some guys, the North American wood ape guys, I believe it was. They sent me all kinds of stuff. They're like, hey, man, this is what we got working here. Try it down there. See if what you got going on is going to, these things will work there. Blew my mind.
That's awesome.
I was like, these guys are professional. You know, they're not looking at it from like an ego. You know, they're not mad because I'm better looking than they are. Sorry, most of you guys out there. Check out my OnlyFans. No, but yeah, but seriously, they sent me all these things and they're like, try this stuff, and that's just how it should be.
Well,
We
see, that's
all
cool.
want the same thing.
Right, and I think that's part of it. I mean, let's say you have a group like the NAWAC, they have certain results. Well, hey man, why wouldn't you want to talk to somebody who might be able to corroborate or show, well, yeah, these things are doing this in this area. Are they doing the same thing as in my area? I mean, that's like basic science, I guess. That's basic, just like you said, we're all sort of on the same team, but not at the same time.
Right, and there's such a divide. Then, especially when you look into the other aspect of Bigfoot, the paranormal aspect,
Right,
like whether people want to admit that they're uh related, the
right,
things happen. And so, like, I'm so glad what happened on the trip happened while you were there.
right.
Now you see how I can easily relate the two. We
Yep,
have knocks, and then we have this orb that we cannot explain. It's not a piece of dust. Nobody's seen this on a camera. You've seen this with your eyes. I unfortunately didn't get to see it.
I know. Tate. Well, I mean, Tate is a very, very flesh and blood kind of guy, and he was perplexed, And I think, and I've always said this that even though I do think that Bigfoot is something more flesh and blood leaning, but there's just so much other strange things that I just don't think we have a frame of reference for right now, understanding with Bigfoot, but broader than that. I mean, there are forces at work that I don't think we really have a frame of reference for at the moment. That's like explaining Wi-Fi technology to someone 200 years ago, right? That'd be seen
Right.
as sorcery.
Right.
So, and I've always said, I think in the past, and I know there's been a lot of accusations lobbed at big organizations, like I'm sure people can know which one I'm talking about, that cherry pick data. And, if there is an element that is a little bit weirder or maybe too weird for their taste, they'll omit it. I've
Yep.
heard those accusations before, and I don't think that's right. I mean, I always say, even if it doesn't really necessarily fit your paradigm, why would you just get rid of it entirely? I mean, it's a piece of the data. Even if it is a minority of, let's say, sightings that have something weird going on, you're still omitting something.
Yeah, and it's counterproductive. Uh, but you can see, like, because when you tell people, hey, I think there may be something more to these creatures than we think, they automatically go to the name calling. You know what I mean? The bashing, you're loony, you've lost your
Right.
mind, all this stuff. Like, seriously, you can say a lot of things about me, and I get with that on most of it, but you can see why I fell into that, because that stuff that happened when y'all are there happens all the time. I took my daughter to the same spot a week later, and she seen a red orb in the road.
Interesting.
Up that same trail or that road we
Yeah.
walked down. And so to me, uh, it it would be dumb to ignore that. You know what I'm saying? Like, okay, hey, what if that never happened to me, I would never believe it. But that's the same thing with a Bigfoot. Had I
Right.
never saw it, like y'all are calling the flesh and blood people are calling the woo people. I hate to use that word, but that is what it is.
Yeah. That's
The woo people crazy. When I got news for you, bud. You're saying there's an 8-foot tall ape running around the woods that we have no proof of, and we've gotten no proof of in the last 60 years, really. Nothing definitive, nothing that science will even ponder for a little
right.
bit. So who's crazy? Like, you can't, oh, well, they're crazier than me.
That's like
I'm
that.
saying,
Yeah. It's like our level of crazy is less crazy than that.
yeah, because
Because
I got
again,
I
that's
got
just
news
a,
for you. Outside that Bigfoot community, we're all nuts to
oh,
everybody
totally.
else.
Totally, yeah, and which is I think is unfortunate because there is I think it's growing. There's an amount of people that are interested in this subject that are kind of looking at it and are saying, hey, there's something going on here that might not necessarily be, within the community or whatever, because there really is no community. I hate even using that Bigfoot community word. There's groups within it, different people, but there's no overarching community. I mean, it's all just warring tribes. But yeah, no, it's I don't know. I think people just I don't know if it's seeing is believing kind of thing. Maybe that really is just how we operate as humans. Like it's so hard to be convinced of something unless you have whatever the gold standard of evidence or proof is, right?
Right. And that's why I don't understand certain people who are so vested into this and they've never seen one. Like my footage, a lot of people come up and talk about dad's footage, and it's only real to me and my dad.
Right.
The rest of y'all should have some doubt. There's a healthy amount of skepticism
Sure.
you should have. You know what I'm saying? And we lose that because we want to believe in a certain way or a certain thing. And it's just the whole thing. Like, this could be solved. This really
Right.
could be done. Like, we shouldn't be talking about it no more. There are so many people, even the people that are just the weekenders that are going out there. If we had a major site or something of that nature that we could, you know, put our data on, speak freely without ridicule, whether you believe them or not, just hear them out. What the
Sure.
hell's the problem with that? You know, if you don't want to be here for that, there's a door, bud, you know? But if we were able to, like, hey guys, I got some really good responses doing this. Try this, guys. You know what I mean? Like, if there was just a team aspect, then we could all share. You know what I mean? We could all share. Instead, we have 1,000 people out there all wanting to be that one.
Yeah.
You know, and don't get me wrong, I want to be that one. But at the same time, obviously, I'm not getting it done. And everybody else should look at that too. Y'all ain't getting it done. I'm not getting it done. Y'all ain't getting it done. You heard Knox. Wow. Like, I got other shit I can do on a Tuesday night than go and hear Knox. You know what I'm saying? Like, I just I hate it for the Bigfoot community. I wish I was never a part of it because of that. Because it's so, to me, it's just so frustrating.
It is frustrating. I mean, I think people, obviously some people, it's an out for them, right? It's a way to get away from the world, just get out in the woods, have fun with their friends. And I think that's great. I mean, if that's your thing, that's your thing. I mean, but in terms of moving the needle, has there really been much that's gone in that direction? I mean, sure, there's pieces of footage, right, like yours and many others, and of course, and I appreciate that you said that. You know, having a healthy dose of skepticism, you have to take everything with a grain of salt. You know, and in this topic, maybe even more than a single grain of salt, right? So, and that's something I wanted to ask you about. We've had this conversation before in terms of just, you know, being all gung ho, right, and wanting to get that footage, wanting to get something out in the public, and and your journey, obviously, going after releasing that footage and sort of experiencing the things that you experienced that I think made you a little bit jaded about, you know, Bigfooting and putting stuff out there in general. I'm curious about that kind of process. Like, what was that like? What did it, from when you got the footage, when you guys got the footage, to when you put it out there, what did you kind of expect versus how it actually went down?
So you have two different camps there, right? You have my dad's camp, as in, all right, hey, dude, let's figure out what this is. And why do we need to show this to anyone? You know what I mean? I don't want to be famous on the Bigfoot shit. That's my dad, right? And then you have me, who I'm like, man, it's a really big deal, right? Like, let's do get this figured out, see how big that thing was and all that. But let's put it out there, man. Like, people should see this, right? Because especially if we got something to basically make that argument that it is real. You know what I'm saying? And so we outsourced the investigation because you don't want to be called a liar. You don't want to, and you know when you're putting your foot into this water that it's cold, right? But you got to ease on into it, right? You know, and so you got to have, you know, everything ready to go. You know, like, so it was very important that we didn't come up with these numbers, that we got somebody else that did, because we outsourced it. Hands are clean of it then at that point. You know what I mean? Cliff's investigation into it, his numbers that he came up with. Granted, we went to the site probably a dozen times for him, you know,
Right.
and got numbers, and then he came down and checked those numbers. He comes up with a size of 8'3", right?
Right.
He comes up with the thing that, hey, this is not computer generated, right? This is not CGI. He debuts it at the FLIR conference, the FLIR Worldwide Conference down in Orlando, speaks about it and everything. other flir thermographers look at it.
I was going to ask about that as well.
You know, they're all like, yeah, that's an actual animal. So then at that point, it's like, okay, how did they do it? And Cliff summed it up basically. He said these guys ain't smart enough to do that because it is what it is. We seem stupid. We're from the South, right? Like, I am from BFE, and I don't have an education outside of high school, so it's to the rest of the world, you seem dumb, you know. And we didn't know how to do CGI. We didn't know how to do all this, and then Bobo comes down, and that's the real time. Because see, my dad didn't even want to do the TV show. He didn't even want to do Finding Bigfoot. He said no to that like twice. Cliff ended up talking him into that. My dad didn't want no part of this.
And that was how many was that? Like soon after?
Yeah, so
within a couple of years.
We filmed it on like May 8th, and we weren't going to release it until Cliff was done.
And what year was that?
2012.
2012, right?
Right. So the Facebook Find Bigfoot guys. You remember those?
I do, yeah, with the Windows Movie Maker intros.
Yeah. So we sent it to them too, right? They sent us a bunch of thermal equipment and all kinds of stuff to get more footage. It was cool, except for they came down to the point where they were going to put it out. They were tired of waiting. And they even made a big announcement about it. And I was like, hey, bud, I will drive to Chicago. Like, don't do that. Don't you put your address on this damn box that you mailed me, homie. Don't no. And so they didn't. We were letting Cliff put it out first, and that's how it was. It was the agreement beforehand. But yeah, it took that amount of time for him to get his numbers, and that was the right time. So we put it out on December 1st, or maybe the 2nd. I'm confused on what day that came out actually, but the next day, phone started ringing. Local TV, Spike TV, Animal Planet, History Channel. You know, all these people are calling now, right? And because there's just so much noise about it all over the internet, and it was like a holy shit! I got to turn all my social media off. This is too much. You know, you don't want this. You don't want this at all. And I got to turn these chats off. Hold on. I was looking at comments. I got to turn that off. I keep glancing over it. I'm like, oh, nope.
There's so much going on. People have conversations of their own in the chat, but there's all kinds of weird stuff going on. But something I want to ask you was, so, you know, it's interesting that, I don't know, you can obviously tell me this, but did you have any scientists or anybody, biologist, primatologist, anyone calling you after that happened, or was it all just entertainment people?
No, it was all entertainment people. Dr. Meldrum was one person that we sent it to 5 people. Facebook Find Bigfoot, Cliff, Derek Randalls, Facebook Find Bigfoot, and one other person. I can't remember who it was. We sent it to all of them, and because the thing that threw me off was the hands. They're
like
huge.
Baseball mitt.
It's like, so I was like, Derek, we're trying to figure out if somebody's messing with us. Like, seriously, was somebody down here a mile in the woods doing something like that? Because if we got those kind of problems, we deal with that a different way. And he was like, that was the one thing I remember from it, is how huge the thing's hands were.
Right.
And so I was like, oh, okay. Well, because it just looked, the proportions of it look odd. You know what I mean? And
very, almost cartoon-like for a human being. I mean,
right. And then you, looking at the footage, I forget what it's like standing there. When you're trying to pick it apart, I forget kind of what happened in the moment. When that thing took off, and it sounded like a damn truck seriously was driving through the woods. Just tearing everything up. Then when you combine the two, no doubt, I don't need the numbers. But at the same time, because, it was like, it took me a few months to remember whatever that thing that was running didn't have no lights on its head. You ain't running just in the Florida bush straight. Just like go turn all the lights out on a dark night. You were out there. Take off running through that swamp.
So I'm just going to pull it up and just kind of show it in the background here.
Yeah. But that's not going to happen. A vine's going to clothesline you or something like that. You know, it's not a feasible thing. You have to have some type of light. But you see here at this point, my dad thinks it's like a coon.
Right.
Then he thinks it's like 2 coons. And then you're sitting there, and then this thing just takes off. And my dad panics. But when you see that thing cross,
that's yeah,
it's still a ways away and has its arm on the tree.
Right. Now this wasn't a TK Scout, right? I forget what model.
No, this was a P something, I think.
It was the binoc. It was like with the double one.
No, it was a TS. That's maybe what it was. A TS right. Scout or something. I've got it in the closet. Don't work no more. But it was the Scout at the time, right? They didn't have all these different choices back then. And this thing was like, didn't record and was still $3,200.
Yeah.
You know, so we had to run an external recorder, and that's the only way we got it because the thermal goes dead. And that's another thing. It's like, how do you keep ignoring that? Like, because I know everybody that's out there that's doing this, I know y'all have had your equipment go dead. Like, I don't, right. You can tell me it hasn't happened and just you ain't been out there enough. Somebody's fibbing about something.
Oh, I've had it happen. We had it happen there. I mean, that second night, right? Well, it was our IR thing that just freaked out, freshly charged. Which, you know, IR. I mean, I don't know if that's coincidental or not, but
it's just. I didn't. After reading that BFRO manual, I decided that okay, hey, this is garbage, right? They're talking about different methods and the little green men and things. And maybe that'll help you to a certain degree, or if you're a certain type of person, doesn't know much about the forest. But hey, I need to apply everything that I've learned throughout my life growing up in these places. Playing. This is what we did on Saturday or after school. You know what I'm saying? Like, all that, you're applying all that to it. So then I just start writing my own manual because, like, moon phases, that's right. A big deal. It is so much more active here when there is no moon. And you get a full moon, I don't know what it is, but it just it's not as good as it is, you know. Right. And then like the feed times when you were here, I preached, hey, we need to be out at this time.
Sure.
And what happened when we went out there at that time? Animals were everywhere.
That was it was wild. That was the most animals we'd seen that entire trip. I mean, just with I had that AGM thermal, and I was getting armadillos left and right, and owls, and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, and so like if I go hunting, some people will always hunt in the mornings and then always hunt in the evenings, or they'll sit out there all day. Which there's going to be about a 2-hour period during that day where it's good, and it's probably where you make your kill. I'm going to show up an hour before that 2-hour period. I'm not going to sit there all day. There's no point in it. Like, unless you just want to do it, you're just only going to hurt.
Out of that. You know, a lot of people just want to do it to get out.
I guess, but like, you're only going to hunt at certain times. You're only going to fish at certain times. It's all by that pull from the moon. And there's a lot. I mean, the chances of you running into a Bigfoot, I feel it could still happen. But I think they're a little bit less than if you're working mainly those times.
Right.
You know, you want to be in your place for about an hour when that feed time starts. When that major feed time is going, you want to be sitting there. You want to have your recorders running. You want to have your camera gear ready, and you just want to be posted up and sitting in that same spot for about an hour. Don't make no noise. You'll start seeing the fox come by. He always makes the same route. You know what I mean? Those owls, they go off. They're always going off at the same time. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah, you're setting up in the spot, and you're letting the forest come back to what it was prior to human elephant coming in and messing everything up. Just let it settle down, settle in, and let things happen. You'll be amazed at what you could see.
Right, and I mean, in a way, you have to educate yourself so you can become the Bigfoot. Like, all these Bigfooters out here should ask themselves, how many days would I survive in the woods alone?
Yeah.
With no food. Okay, so y'all need to figure that out. That would be, if I was teaching a Bigfoot class, that would be what we did first. We would learn how I'm going to survive off the land without hunting an animal. Let's just talk about edibles, because once we can figure out where the edibles are, then we figure out where all the life is. It's like in the ocean or in the bay, right? You have your bay, you have an oyster bar. Your oyster bar is feeding your microscopic things, everything. It's like the buffet. So you have the whole food chain. Everything
everything
from the
plays a part.
shrimp all the way up to the redfish or to the tarpon. Everything eats a bigger thing. And you have to find that oyster bar, right? I talk in fishing terms because that's what I was for the longest time. So
Good area for it, though, in the Gulf there, yeah.
all right, we went yesterday and slayed them, but you just...
I got to read this one comment.
Okay.
It says, Kevin Hamilton says Tate could survive 4 days without food, half an hour without PBR.
I don't know if he can do 4 days without Culver's.
Probably not. Oh my God!
I gotta argue that one.
Without his truck to sleep in, he will not find a place to sleep. But
Right.
But no, I mean, yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's just, you have to educate yourself on these things, because then once you can figure out, because it's all going to change. Like, all the food's going to be gone for here before too long, and then it's going to be somewhere else. We need to find those spots, because when we find those spots, that's where your bear's going to be. That's where your Bigfoot's going to be. Your hog's going to be. If this is a flesh and blood creature, if it's not a flesh and blood creature, all bets are off. It could be anywhere.
Sure, but I mean, I think even with those weirder elements, I mean, you have strange hair samples that have been found. You have footprints. So I mean, even if there is something weirder going on, it's still interacting in a sort of physical way with an environment. So
right.
But yeah, I think the part of it is just learning as much as you can about the areas that you're in. As you mentioned, I mean, not just learning about the food system, but can this area support larger animals? Can it support an ecosystem like that would be conducive? I mean, is it an area that's maybe just good enough for something to maybe move through temporarily, but not live full time? I mean, and the more you learn about that environment, the more you're going to be able to also differentiate between so many of the things that I'm sure you've experienced tons of that, where people, there's something they think is Bigfoot and it's just completely explainable with another animal. Just people are not familiar with the woods as they once were. I mean, let's just face it, most people are living in urbanized areas. I mean, as a whole species, we're trending towards that, not just...
You're about to see it. Like, it's about to come to a reality. Like, all these people that are sleeping on, oh, hey, I got my security, I got my energy, I got my AC. Y'all about to be in trouble, cuz.
Oh, yeah.
I hope I'm wrong, but you're about to see.
Well, yeah, I mean, without getting into politics, I mean, look at this whole thing with gas, right? Look at people complaining about prices, and what's the solution? Going to electric and things that are very controllable, let's say.
Right.
And it's so there's it's getting scarier, I think, in that perspective. But again, we've been disconnected from even our ancestors 150 years ago, who lived so close to the land as compared to now, where it's totally different. So
yeah, because society is soft.
Oh yeah.
We are Georgia cotton, bro. We soft as it gets right now,
Yep.
And
people do not test themselves either at all.
They don't, the thing I so much, like, at times I wish I was born a Native American, just for the simple fact that I could go through that passage. You know what I mean? Like becoming a man, or
Right.
like they have these tests that they have to go and do. You know what I mean? To make that passage into manhood or to whatever.
Sure.
And we've lost that. We've
Completely.
lost that. And Sasquatch may not have lost those things. Maybe we have those attributes. Maybe, because I know when I stay in the woods 10 days, about day 6, day 7, I'll start getting hungry at those times. I'll start losing what society has put on me, and I'll start becoming more of that. To find the Bigfoot, you're going to have to become the Bigfoot. You're going to have to shed your security blanket, and it's going to take somebody to end up doing that. It's going to take,
sure. Yep.
Like, that was my biggest thing on, like, Survivor Man. This dude can do it. This dude can do it, will do it, and is open to it. You know what I mean? If we had everybody doing like that, where they could just shed all these comforts and things we don't need, you can really tune in. It's like I was telling you when I was down there. If I'm going out by myself, I won't wear snake boots. And there's a reason to that. I'll be more careful when I walk. I won't walk as fast. I won't walk as clumsily. I won't
Right.
make so much noise.
You're much more actually focused on what's in the
Yeah.
moment as opposed to keeping up with your group or
You're deliberate then. You're deliberate in where you're going because, oh, hey, I'm not going to walk through there because it might hurt my feet. The Sasquatch probably going to be the same way.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
It would
So,
have
hey,
to be, yeah.
right. So I'm gonna do certain things once I shed all these creature comforts, all these things that have made me soft, made me domesticated, because I'm not domesticated. Or I am, but I'm not supposed to be. Well, none of
Sure.
us are.
I don't think any of us are. And I think people should take the time to test themselves a little bit. Put yourself out there. Go sleep in 12-degree weather, Give it a try, do crazy stuff, push yourself. I mean, a lot of people obviously are so just removed from anything from the natural world, right? I mean, I'm sure we all know those people that you could put out in a hiking trail and would just have an absolutely miserable time. And a hiking trail is such a groomed area. I mean, is that even really in the wood? You're in the woods, sure, but you're on the human managed part, right? People so rarely go off of the trail. And I think when it comes to this topic too, it goes to show how utterly predictable we are. We do the same things. We go to the same places. Very rarely do we deviate when we're out in the woods. So it's extremely easy to learn people's patterns that way. If you're just if you're a creature that's used to observing, sitting and observing, or just watching and learning, we're extremely predictable, right? I mean, then it's so easy to avoid us and know our habits and what time farmers feed their livestock at 5:30 in the morning or whatever the case may be, when you can have an opportune moment to make a move. So it's
because they don't have no. I guess I don't know why I lose the word here. They don't understand time. We have this construct that civilization has put on us. You know what I'm saying? And it's really a detriment. And that, I think that's our problem, because they can sit and wait.
Oh yeah, outweigh us all the time. I mean, people get so impatient, and nowadays especially, I mean, people with their attention spans because of social media and cell phones have just been completely eradicated. You can barely get people's attention to watch a 10-minute video, let alone outwait something an hour in the woods, right? Majority of the time, that's just not going to happen. People just so most animals can outweight us easily, let alone something as intelligent as a Sasquatch. I mean,
what the hell do they got
to do?
Right. You know what I mean? All they got to do is eat. As long as you ain't around their kids, you ain't gonna phase.
Well, it's like when you remove and that's one of those things. Like when we spend time out in the woods, the biggest thing I appreciate is not having to do with the schedule shit, right? You're not, oh man, I got this to do. I got to respond to this person's email. I got to follow up on this. My focus entirely, and I mean, on this Florida trip, it was, I'm not going to say we were doing some extreme hardcore stuff. I mean, we've done it in the past, but that was just, we were camping in the campgrounds and like sleeping in the car like Tate would at times. But you get that appreciation that, man, my day is revolving around, where do I want to hike today? What areas do I want to explore? What do I want to film? What do I want to eat? It's so much more basic as compared to normally. And I think if you turn that up and go even further, I mean, spend months out there, that's what it's going to take. And I mean, if we look at, ape studying, right? Studying gorillas and chimps and those kinds of things. And doesn't mean Sasquatch is a chimp or a gorilla, but those people had extreme patience. I mean, they could have been easily turned off when they didn't see a gorilla for 2 weeks and said, all right, this is hopeless. I know they're there, but I can't see them. Right. We're going to have to be patient. I mean, people are going to have to be patient and really get out there. But I don't think most people are not kind of cut out for it nowadays, unfortunately. And this is a good comment. Stevie says, losing all the comforts that man has adopted will be our greatest challenge ever. Yeah. Will it be possible? I don't know.
I don't know that it is, because you'll have so many people like, okay, so look at the animal kingdom. and this ain't a knock on anybody, but you don't have obese animals.
No, it's true.
You don't. You don't. You know why? Because they're not plugged with commercials and signs that flash and all this shit telling you need to stop
Industrialized
and get enough.
food,
Yeah, it's
seed oils.
capitalism. I mean, like we could consume way less and be just fine. They only eat, at certain times, and then the other times they live really an in tune life with this world, and I'm jealous of that.
It's very idealistic, yeah, because there's so many people that would like to live like that, but when you're even slightly, just involved in the modern world, it's just so difficult to be like that. I mean, that is the ideal harmony, right? You live as a part of nature. You're not just something that's removed from nature that needs to control it, like human beings have tried for centuries to control nature, right? You're completely a part of it. Whatever Sasquatch is a part of it firmly, and they absolutely dominate in that. Putting up a person to a Bigfoot in terms of being a woodsman, I mean, it would be a joke.
Yeah, but I think those are just things that we need to seriously think about if we're gonna move forward. Like there has to, at one point, like seriously, we got to stop all this fighting, and maybe some people can stay out and fight,
Yeah,
but why
there's
can't
always
we?
going to be that.
Why can't we have just a collective where the majority of us that are serious about this can actually work together?
Oh, for sure.
There shouldn't be, because hey, we don't get to the top till we all eat. That's what I like to say with my business. We ain't there till everybody's eating. So,
Sure.
And that's how we have to be. I think that's what's going to end up doing it. Who will bridge that gap and bring it, forward and get everybody to join in. Is probably going to be somebody who's nothing like me, because somebody maybe is serious or comes across as more serious than I do. Because like there's a vast distinction from people like myself and then like Dr. Meldrum.
Right, but I mean, if you can't have a little bit of fun with it, what's the point, right? If you take yourself too seriously, I don't know. I think that's all part of it. I mean, it's for each of us, it's a journey in a way. So I mean, if it's super serious all the time, I don't know. But yeah, I think I saw a comment earlier. It might have been Matt, Central Florida Bigfoot. I don't know who had said, start small with a smaller network of people, kind of maybe work out eventually. I don't know if it's going to be possible. There's always going to be people fighting. There's always going to be that ego and those people that are just absolutely lying and just in it for the drama. I mean, there's people like that. They just get a kick out of being the center of the attention and creating problems because they're humans. Right. They're just using Bigfoot as an excuse, just like the Kardashians, that they're creating a program that's based on them, but it's about the drama, right? Because that's what people like. People like the drama. Oh, who said this about that researcher? Wow, let's have a kind of gossip session about that. And that always gets back to the point of Bigfoot is out there, not here at all.
Right. When I worked on a boat, we're 100 miles offshore. There wasn't no drama out there because there wasn't no HR department. If something started, it finished its way one way or another. You know what I mean? With a bunch of men. So that tended not.
You guys are in life-threatening situations. I mean, when you get in situations like people, you got to trust people. I mean, you can get in arguments and whatever, but it's got to be settled soon, because if you're in a situation where this person's got to save your life, I mean,
exactly. So all the BS goes out the window, so it can be done. Yeah. I've seen a comment here, something like, well, there's always going to be liars and hoaxers. There is always going to be liars and hoaxers, but the bigger problem is there's always going to be people accusing other people of being liars and hoaxers. That's the biggest problem, because, hey, you don't have to say nothing. You still have to believe that.
It's that meme of the Spider-Mans all pointing at each other.
Right.
You're the hoaxer. You're the hoaxer. It's basically like that. I mean, that's a good format. But no, I mean, I really like the way the conversation's going. I do just want to see. I know there were some questions popping in about obviously the thermal footage and that kind of stuff. So I'm just going to go find. So guys, if you could put questions in all caps, I've seen some people have been doing that, but for other folks, please just remember to do that. It just makes my job a little bit easier here. All right, so let's see. We got Joe Turry who asks, I can't recall, but Stacy, did you find any tracks at the thermal image site?
No. So after my dad filmed it, he lost his marbles, I guess. You know what I mean? He was ready to get out of the woods. So we left immediately, didn't go back. I don't think I went back for 2 or 3 weeks. So at that point it was done. We did find tracks later and at other times. You know, Cliff on his website has some really good recordings of whoops from like 50 yards away from where we actually filmed it.
Right.
You know, and that's I mean, so we have found tracks, other things out there, but at that time when we filmed it, no. We didn't even look. So
got a interesting, I guess it's more of a comment. I did want to read it from Tristan, who's going to be on next week's show. We're going to be playing some of his pretty freaky 16 or like 30-minute long audio from Bumping Lake, totally insane stuff. But he says maybe those big hands are used to wood knock. That's something I wanted to ask you about. I mean, I've thought about that too, especially in environments like the Pacific Northwest, and you've been out there too, where you pick up a piece of wood and chances are it's dead or it's punky. You're not going to get that wood knocking. What do you think about the whole knock kind of thing with hands? Maybe
I think maybe they're slapping the trees. You know what I'm saying? And only that certain trees. You know, because it's the same way down here. Everything's so wet.
Yeah.
Most every limb you pick up is rotten.
Sure.
And then at that, you can't really make that crisp, classic wood knock sound that we all hear on a pine tree. You know, because the bark there kind of deadens that percussion.
It's like a pad almost for straight
So,
impact.
So, you know, I think they have to be doing it with their hands, or it's something that we're not understanding that they're doing.
Right.
You know, it could be something completely different. Like, that's the thing. Who all in this room has seen a Bigfoot do a knock? Who has even heard of somebody seeing a Bigfoot knocking on a tree? Maybe it's out there and I'm just not aware of it, but I've looked enough into this subject and I've never heard
there really
somebody.
isn't a lot. I think the closest thing to it probably is like a rock getting thrown at a tree and maybe making that similar noise. But again, you know, who threw the rock? Do you know 100%
right,
it was a Bigfoot that threw the rock?
Yeah. Did we see a Bigfoot pick up a limb and smack a tree, or did we see a Bigfoot do this tree twist? Why are we believing these things? Where are the reports of that? You know what I'm saying? So we have seen a Bigfoot cross the road, you know,
Right.
so
Many times. Yeah.
we spend a lot of time, you know, riding around with the dash cams on. You know what I'm saying? Maybe it across the road, because I think it's like 94% or some extremely high amount of the reports are from them crossing a road.
Crazy amount. Like whichever area you look at, crazy amount of reports. And I mean, then that makes you wonder, you know, is it a sort of just having fun with people kind of thing, or is it because, you know, deer and other animals, they cross the road because they're sort of panicking. It's a last minute decision. They're not very smart animals. I mean, there's a reason why they're in the food chain where they are, right? So, you know, is it just, oh, hey, is their version of playing chicken? You know, hey, let me run out in front of this guy. His buddies in the woods say, hey, let's ruin this guy's night. And I've heard some encounters, people seeing a road crossing, and it really kind of messed them up.
Oh yeah, you know? Like, for sure.
The last thing you'd expect, you know, you hit a moose, that's not fun, but you see something that's not supposed to exist when you're just getting home early in the morning from work. That can mess people up. And I've heard some pretty, you know, kind of harrowing stories about people having encounters that left a mark on them. So why are they you know, are they giving themselves trauma for some weird reason? I don't know.
Right. There's just a lot of beliefs we have in this Bigfoot world that are not.
Where are they from?
Yeah, there's no foundation to the belief.
It's like that you repeat a lie enough, they just become fact, right? It's you repeat something, it just that just becomes established as a thing that happens.
Right. So it's just another one of the things that dumbfound me about this whole thing.
There's so little to work with. People, I think, are grasping at straws a lot of times, and the tree twists and that sort of stuff. I have no idea where that came from either, and that's just sort of stuck. And you see it all the time. I mean, if the amount of structures that are out there, I mean, there's millions of structures, right? If that's what they indeed are. And I can think of one sighting ever up here in New Hampshire where there was a creature seen inside of a structure, and it wasn't one of these teepees or leans or anything. It was literally a stone stacked structure with just hemlock branches as the roof, and this thing was seen sitting inside of it. And I interviewed the guy who saw it, and I mean, was it a Bigfoot just in some primitive structure that somebody had built? Did this thing build it? I have no idea, but that's the only one I can think of on the top of my head. But
right, so like, well, think about the whole Bigfoot thing and everything we think we know. Why do we know these things? That's so, like, if you actually think of how much progress we've made in the whole Bigfoot quest to find the truth for Bigfoot, we're basing things that I don't know that we should actually be basing things on, like those wood knocks, those whoops, all that stuff. What are we, I mean,
there's a lot of shaky stuff.
There's a lot of shake. There's no solid ground to stand on. We know Bigfoots are real. Some of us do because some of us have saw them, and that's where it ends.
But what's so interesting too is that we rely so heavily on anecdotal stories and eyewitness accounts, and a vast majority of those encounters were people that genuinely had probably no interest in studying the topic or wanted nothing to do with it, and
Right.
just happened to be in the right place at the right time and see a Bigfoot doing whatever it was doing, which I think is kind of intriguing. But yeah, no, it's the way we work with it. I mean, and even saying that, though, how little progress we've made, there is still so little people actually looking into this. I mean, in terms of the broader population, as we talked about earlier, most people don't even take this seriously. I mean, how many people still think there's just the one Bigfoot kind of thing?
Yeah. So like,
lumped in with the Santa Claus.
That's another thing. It's like people in the Bigfoot community are blaming other people for why they don't take it serious. Oh, it's the hoaxers. It's the hoaxers. Y'all sure it ain't them red circles?
Yeah, that's
like, let's be honest. Like, why does nobody give this any stance?
Yeah, well, that's that pareidolia. I mean, you could see a face anywhere as a human being. I mean, that we do that on purpose. I mean, that's, for us, it's a pattern recognition thing, that we are just trying to find something familiar in something that's unknown, right? We do it whether we like it or not. But yeah, that's when it gets to kind of the really big conspiracy stuff too, I think, well, I mean, like, look at the way the media treats the subject, the way the broad public treats it. I mean, it's so easy to discredit the people that are interested in the topic. So why would there need to be, some kind of top-down sort of thing going on? I don't know.
It's dumb, man. It's dumb. It's like them kids that played Dungeons and Dragons in high school. They were serious about that, and they would hate each other. Oh, yeah. Dude, it's like, man, what the hell are you? What?
Difference is a lot of those people maybe hopefully outgrew that kind of thing.
Hopefully. I think a lot of them ended up being Bigfooters.
For sure. Got this question from Cindy Finn. This is when we were showing the thermal footage. She said, "Where is this at?"
Oh, that's Torreya State Park. It's in Bristol, Florida, right along the Apalachicola River. So it's like Panhandle region. The Garden of Eden is actually that area. So theologians, I guess that's how you say the word, church people, right. church thinkers, they identified like 27 of the 28 trees from the Bible in this area, as well as the wood that Noah built the ark out of. And then supposedly there's some tree that only grows in Jerusalem and in the Garden of Eden, which happens to be at this place in between 15 meters and 40 meters on the east side of the Apalachicola River. So there's all these, like, not to go off on a tangent because that's what I'm doing, but there's all these, like, I guess you can match all these things to the Bible for this one area that's considered the Garden of Eden. So it's pretty cool, but tons of wildlife. You know what I mean? It's a different part of Florida. It's a beautiful
area. It really is. My God.
Yeah, right. So it's like when you see Florida, you've seen Florida. You've seen all of Florida just about. Yep. It's the one spot that's different.
It really is. It's a little bit of everything. We noticed all these different environments, obviously, throughout the state of Florida, and it seems like that area just had all of it kind of combined and in a different way. And through doing my research about the way the Spanish, they were, obviously, Florida was, while the rest of the U.S. was becoming a country in the late 1700s, 1800s, Florida was controlled by the Spanish. But there was two areas they were really focused on. One was that area towards Jacksonville, St. Augustine, and the other area was that Panhandle area. That for some reason they were really interested in those two areas.
Fountain of Youth.
That Ponce de Leon, right? Wasn't he supposedly in that area?
Yeah, he actually was in my county. He thought the springs there were the Fountain of Youth, and then ended up in St. Augustine, believing another place was the Fountain of Youth. But the mosquitoes are so bad here. A lot of his people died
Ugh,
because they had to wear their armor all the time, right? And they're traveling, and the mosquitoes
just
got
got
in
right in
between
there.
their bottom or their body and the armor, and were just biting them, and they couldn't stop. So they would look like they just covered in measles or chicken pox or something like that. It caused a lot of
Brutal.
guys to perish. But yeah, they spent more than too much time looking for the Fountain of Youth, believing that it was an actual thing. Now, I say that I hunt Bigfoot, and I probably spent too much time doing that, but I can understand them. It's
Right.
really, really amazing to me.
Well, it's just interesting. I mean, you got to know the history of these places to know, what you're even to this day. I mean, we're looking for this creature, and there's been civilizations that have existed in this area. Obviously, people in this topic talk a lot about the Native Americans and other tribes, and Florida's history was really different than other parts of even the South uh, in that sort of colonial period. The way it was with the Spanish, and the Seminoles being group people that came down from other parts of the U.S. or pushed out of the other parts of the U.S. down into those areas, and there were tribes that sort of disappeared in that area, especially down towards the Everglades. There's a lot of really interesting stuff in Florida. I didn't know how much of that there really was, and how wild it still is. I mean, that's the thing that people, I think, don't understand. They think Florida is all Miami and Orlando and Tampa, right? But there's just so much between there, and that Panhandle area definitely gets a little overlooked when it comes to Florida, I think. And
Can you see how big that is?
oh yeah, it's a big
That's
boy.
that's a wolf track
The
that I
red
got.
wolf, is that the red wolf?
It shouldn't be. It shouldn't be because of the size. This is bigger than a timber wolf track.
Huge.
And this was taken from right there by the film site. But this is the thing about Florida. We find things that should not be here all the time, or things that we can't understand. And
Right.
how in the hell this thing got where it was, is amazing to me.
Wasn't there something about them trying to reintroduce red wolves to Panhandle area or something like that?
Yeah, they've been trying because what?
Originally, they used to be there. Yeah.
Yeah, and we decided to get rid of all of them. But they don't grow to that. Their tracks usually end up about 3.5 inches, and that one's over 5.5 inches. So it's like, I don't know if things just migrate, and you have all these biologists and stuff talking about, well, these things don't tend to go in that area. Like, come on, man. Y'all really know that? Because for the longest time, there was no great whites out here in the Gulf. Wasn't there wasn't no great whites. It was just y'all didn't know about it.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So I think people sometimes take these. Well, there's none of these in that area. There's none of that in that area. They take it as fact. And it's
Sure.
real. It really should not be. It's an educated guess.
No, and animals don't respect our borders or anything like that. And they move through these different areas, and you got jaguars that come up from Mexico. That's just in terms of the animals that are supposed to be there. Obviously, Florida gets a big rep for a lot of the invasive stuff and and the like, which there is a bunch of. And I mean, that's just the effect of humans. We ruin all these environments. We introduce all these animals that shouldn't be there, and especially in a place like Florida. I mean, there's that whole state park. We went there trying to see if we could find any of those monkeys. It was over towards Ocala, where they got those monkeys with the hepatitis B or whatever that have been there since the 30s, and there's just hundreds of them living out there, just kind of doing their thing, man. It's totally wild.
We got those on game cam, and then we were in Gothi, right? And the monkeys wasn't supposed to be over here. We were in this old hammock, cypress hammock, hundreds of years old. It was so swampy they couldn't get back there to log it, so that's why all these trees stayed. And I'm talking about cypress
Those
trees.
old growths, yeah, that's
Yeah,
awesome.
cypress trees are just big around as a car, right? Uh, and we got in there, and I did a whoop, and then I got a response, and I was like, "What in the world?" And then I got like 50 responses, and it was these monkeys in the canopy there.
Amazing.
And dude, that was top 10,
That's
top 10,
super
one of the
cool.
coolest
That's
things. So
right on. So Tristan asks, has Stacy had more activity in the same area since the thermal was taken?
we did, for a while it was still ongoing, and then Hurricane Michael came, And so that really kind of destroyed a lot of it. Like every tree in Torreya above 8 feet was snapped.
Wow.
And because you got to figure it was a 180-mile-an-hour winds that just sat there.
Yeah, you know what category that was, or
5.
oh, that was like a real
Yeah,
major one.
that was the real deal, you know. And it just sat there and churned for like 7 hours, and it just destroyed. Looked like a bomb went off. And then after my dad passed away, I haven't been back. I hope to go this year, but you know, I'm struggling with that still. So I've kind of put that on the back burner and work another spot, which is, you know, unfortunate. I blame it on the hurricane, but you know, to be quite honest, I haven't been to the film site. Connor asked me to go with him one time, and I was like, dude, I don't want to cry in front of you, bud.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
No, definitely left a mark on you for sure. So Carrick here asks, Stacy, what do you think of skunk ape reports that describe quadrupedal ones? The Mayaca photos or somewhat recent report from a war reenactor come to mind.
So I think this just goes down to all Bigfoot type creatures. They definitely, from the reports, are walking around on all fours. People are finding, you know, knuckle prints, things of that nature. I think it's something that they all do. You know, and I think maybe the way their legs are built, their arms being longer, is kind of more proof of, you know, they can go down to this all four thing, you know, and move quite well. So I honestly, it kind of throws me off, because then you know, you see how well they walk, you know, on 2 legs. It's like their pelvis bone has to be made a certain way to stand straight up and walk like that, which is not going to be good for getting down on all fours and walking. But maybe the dimensions to their legs itself helps out with that.
Well, you see how goofy humans are when we walk on all fours.
Right.
Sasquatch, obviously, the longer arms reported, maybe that adds more of a balance. I don't know. I mean, I'm not an expert in any of that sort of stuff, but
right,
definitely interesting. Yeah, I mean, there's sightings. The creepiest ones that I hear are the sightings where there's like a belly crawl thing going on.
Oh yeah, or the spider crawl.
Freaking crazy! Oh, that's terrifying,
dude. I wet myself, man. So like, but yeah, that whole anatomy of it, just I'm not, like I said, I'm not educated in those things. The one thing of anatomy I have, the knowledge I have of anatomy, Todd Disatel sent me this after Bigfoot Bounty.
Oh, right on.
It's a skeleton. Well, he's got a sombrero, but he's not supposed to. You know, so this way I could learn human anatomy.
Just the basics, right?
Yeah, and then that would you know, help me out in my search, especially when you find a hyperextended gator arm. Gator leg, you know what I mean? So, which that had even the biologist who told me it was some type of primate. We thought it was one of the monkeys, possibly, or maybe because it was a longer arm than what the monkeys would have. So, like, hey, maybe this is a juvenile skunk ape. There's Bigfoots in this area. Why not get it looked at? And then comes back to alligator leg, a huge alligator. Then everybody's like, "Oh my God, you're stupid. You don't know." It's like, bro, you wouldn't have known either.
Yeah, I guarantee people run into something like that, you probably get excited in the woods. I know I would. I mean, even if it did turn out to be a gator, I'd be pretty excited to find gator stuff.
Oh, it was, you know, and the worst thing I did was saying, hey, we're in possession of a non-human primate arm, which is what we were told, right? So I just relayed that message, and then when it comes back as not such, then you're the worst person on the planet. And then, like you said earlier in the show, things that got me jaded from not even releasing the things I'm dealing with now, I have no reason to. You know, I don't care for that. You know, I'm not lying to nobody. You know what I mean?
That's something I've noticed with a lot of other researchers as well, is that I've heard this from other groups as well, you know, like some of the ones we talked about earlier. There's that whole, you know, well, if there is a discovery, maybe I can hand this information off to the next guy who's looking at it, like, here you go. and I've heard that multiple times, very similarly put. So I think some people just don't want to deal with the blowback. I mean, because it doesn't matter if you can have the best thing since Patty or whatever. I mean, any footage, right? It's just not really going to matter because you're just going to get torn apart regardless.
You could bring in a body.
Yeah. Oh, and you'll get torn apart. Yeah.
Yeah. No matter what, and they ruin it for themselves. I've got a bunch of cool shit I'm sitting on. You know what I mean? That y'all never hear until this thing's proven. Once it's proven, then I'll put my stuff out, and I won't put it out to public. I'll bring it to the people who are actually going to then work on it, because, hey, here's these things I know, here's these things I've found, as the community ruins everything for themselves.
Yeah, I find that interesting. People, if you sit on stuff, you get accused of hoarding or whatever, hoaxing, right? I don't know if hoaxing, but just hoarding. Whereas, I mean, so many people, and I stress that as well. If you find something of interest, don't, the first thing you do shouldn't be post it to Facebook, post it to your YouTube. Talk to people behind the scenes. Talk to folks that have no emotional attachment to that evidence that can maybe tell you, you find something out there. Hey, do you think you could get this tested for me? What do you think it could be?
All right. Or somebody's got some audio and it's like, hey, bud, I got the same audio from down here. You know what I'm saying?
Follow up. Even somebody that might not even be involved in Bigfoot, if they can just kind of check it out, vet your stuff. I mean, what's wrong with that? I don't see anything wrong with that.
Nothing wrong with that. But at this point, I'm a hoarder. I put a little bit of stuff out here and there on my YouTube. Besides that, nothing. If I catch something, it's just on my hard drive.
Yeah. Now, well, I don't know. This question, I guess, is kind of related. Ryan asked, Stacy, have you ever heard language from these creatures?
We have heard a mumbling before. But is it a language? Is it more of just you're kind of like did the Neanderthals have a language? Because they have vocal cords. I'm sure they made some sounds.
Some kind of noise, right?
Doesn't mean that these things got some type of language. They might, but I have heard some strange sound like deaf people talking before.
Interesting. Right on. Yeah. It's. I mean, people like to talk about language. I mean, but again, we don't have a whole lot to work with. I know people have claimed to have heard things, and I've talked to plenty of folks that have said, "Oh, I heard mimicking, or I heard this, or heard that." I don't know. I don't know what to make of it, really.
Right.
Let's see here. I'm trying to. It's the chat moves so quick. Tough to see what's going on here. Francesca E asks, any of those wildfires in that area right now, Heard Panhandle is having issues?
They are around like the Panama City area. They should get those under control. We usually do control burns here. So hopefully it doesn't get out of control. But they're about an hour from me.
Right.
Well, about an hour and 45 minutes, I guess. But they, we haven't had a lot of rain lately, and so that's odd. But it won't be long before we have rain, and our forestry system does pretty good because we're the lightning strike capital of the world.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So we do control burns regularly. It's a pretty good system they got going on here.
That's what I was going to say. I've heard Florida does a pretty good job at the burns, and we saw a ton of those controlled burns in Ocala, a place we camped in the forest there. And I think it was the morning we were leaving, we noticed there was some smoke coming out of one area. And we went over and we found one of those underground fires that was still burning, like 3 feet in the ground. You had that smoke still coming out.
Bro. That was a pine stump. That was what happens is once the trees die, that sap cures and it's highly flammable. So the pine stumps will run 8 to 10 feet in the ground straight down, because like oak trees have roots that go out, pine trees have roots that go straight down. So that's what y'all seen. But it's cool because it'll just be billowing smoke, or you'll see like a glow of the fire down in there. It's pretty neat.
Oh, it was weird, and we were like, oh, check this out. So there's a lot of that stuff in Florida now. Here's a question from Joe. It says, Stacy, have you ever encountered a Florida panther?
I actually have twice. Usually you don't know they're there at all. but that therm, and then when you see one, how close it is to you. Like one time we seen it, we were up at the house, sitting around the fire pit and had my kids around and stuff. And this thing went but 20 yards from us. I just happened to therm and there it was. And so we all ran after it, to get the hell out of there. And then another time we were walking up on a creek and it was so thick, we just heard this, wow, and then this urine smell.
Oh,
like
classic.
It sprayed, and then there were panther tracks over there. So
was that in the Panhandle or was that other parts of Florida?
Yeah, that was all up here in the Panhandle.
Yeah, they're not supposed to be there, right? That's what they say.
Right. Yeah. Okay.
Well, that's yeah. I mean, it's crazy that gets that whole mountain lion discussion and the rest of the eastern United States where they're not supposed to be, yet they keep turning up, and credible DNA evidence has been found. But another story for another time, I suppose. But yeah, Florida panthers are pretty cool. Oh man. So Chuck Gonzalez asks, I don't know if I can't really read this, but do you believe in looking Bigfoot tribes throughout North America, or are they the same? I don't know if you want to try to decipher that or not. If not, I can find something else.
I'm not that high right now, bud. No, I get. I don't know what he means. Do you believe in looking Bigfoot tribes throughout America, or are they the same? I guess maybe looking at Indian tribes, or maybe the Bigfoots are living in tribes. Would they all be the same? Honestly, I think the creatures are all the same. I think it comes down to Bergman's law. So you have a difference in like the mountain lion and the Florida panther. They're both a puma. You know what I mean? Our black bear is the same black bear that's out there, but just a little bit of a difference genetically, I guess, and closer to the equator, so everything's smaller.
You don't need to be as big, yeah.
No, I think everything really, it's all the same. We all get the same kind of action all over the United States. So to think that these creatures are really that much different, foolish in my eyes.
Yeah. No, I mean, it makes sense. You think of, like you brought the panthers, mountain lions, cougars, catamounts, all these different names. They're all the same species, but there's like 6 different subspecies between North, Central, and South America. And I think North America, they're all the same one, because they were trying to figure out for the longest time if the eastern panthers were different from the ones out west and down south. But I remember down in the Everglades, we found deer tracks. I mean, that was like, I'm looking at it, I'm like, that's a baby deer. And I guess that's they're tiny compared to what we have up north up here. And that panther track we found, we thought was a bobcat at first because it was so tiny. And I've seen panther tracks out west that were massive, and this was just totally different. And then it turns out bobcats are like smaller than house cats almost down
so that heat really, you don't put the weight on.
Right. Bear is too super lanky.
Yeah, they're not really. If you'd see them with hair, you'd think they were dying, but
right.
You can't put the pounds on. There's no real hibernation here for none of these animals. And I guess it's just like you are what your environment is. So
makes sense. Yeah, because that's something we struggled with down there was how it wasn't even that hot when we were down there, obviously. But you think about how much of that humidity you guys get in the summertime and the wet season, when it's just miserable being out there in a place like the Everglades or in other parts of the state. Why would you want to be some kind of a furry animal in these environments? Yet you have all these different furry creatures: bears, panthers, deer, all your other little marsupials, and raccoons and possums and all that sort of stuff. They all live and thrive in those areas. So if they can do it, humans can do it. Other ape-like creatures maybe could do it as well. I don't know.
This is the only place in the country where it actually makes sense to me that they would live.
Really? I find that interesting.
You know what I mean? Because you're talking about 800-pound creature. The one I saw in California was massive. And just trying to think of how that thing would survive, out there boggled my mind. Down here, there's all this food and there's all this water, especially when you get out to California and stuff. That's why squatching should be easy in California. It's like, just go find the water.
Yeah, there's just so little of it.
You know what I mean? And like, you got to drink. You may be able to go a few days without eating, but you got to drink something. And that's why, to me, Florida would be the best spot in the country. except for like the Olympic Peninsula. They have plenty
Yeah,
of water, you know,
the
and plenty of rain.
rainforest. Well,
Right.
if you look at the sightings, I mean, Florida typically has been in that top category for quite a while, top 10 states with number of reported sightings. However, that's been measured over the years. And you look at, typically apes need sort of a certain amount of moisture to survive, and which areas have the most amount of moisture anywhere in North America? Well, it's that temperate rainforest that goes from southern Alaska to northern California and places like Florida, where there's just a constant, it's that constant sort of rainy or precipitous weather, I guess you could call it.
Right.
Which is interesting, but right on. So Bill Campbell here asks, Stacy, you hear wood knocks in the swamps?
We do. Alex, you actually heard some with us.
That's
you
right.
know, what they're doing, I don't know, but we do hear like I said, we hear all the same things everywhere else that everybody else reports. It's just a different environment.
Yeah, I thought it was cool how that first night we were out, it was much more of that pine foresty kind of area, right? It was like some of those little swamps. But that second night, the spot we walked into was definitely a lot more water around, at least from what I could tell, a lot more wet. So it was interesting. I mean, hey, we got a knockdown in the glades. I mean, we didn't even know that at the time when it happened. We were just sort of like, well, we don't know what it was. But after looking at it on the audio, I mean, it was pretty interesting. It sounded exactly like the knock that we kind of did, very similar. And I know for a fact there was nobody else out there in the area. We were in Big Cypress, not the Everglades specifically. It was Big Cypress, but so that was the only thing really had happened down there. But got one more from Tristan here. It says, where does Stacy think the Sasquatch sleep in Florida? I sure as heck wouldn't sleep on the ground.
I sleep on the ground. Like usually I just have the fire going within a few feet of me. I'll have my stack of wood to keep the fire going if it dies down. And then my sleeping bag, a tarp, and then my sleeping bag right beside it. No tent. In hopes that I wake up and the Sasquatch is there looking at me or poking me, something like that. But yeah, I think they have no problem sleeping in the grass, pine needles, things like that. Just a bed up. The deer sleep on the ground. The bears sleep on the bears kind of dig a hole. I know some people say these things live up in gator caves, which, believe it or not, you remember Manny from Jackass?
Oh yeah.
Okay, we were going to have him take us up in some gator caves, but it like fell through. We were going to actually go up under and set a camera in a gator cave and see if we could see a skunk ape coming in there. Glad that fell through. But some people believe that that's where they stay. I don't buy into that, just because that seems illogical. Right. I think they would just bed up in some shade close to water.
Yeah, no, definitely interesting. I mean, I think people that haven't spent any time in Florida, and I don't blame people. I mean, the reputation obviously is that everything in Florida wants to kill you in the woods, right? With the snakes and gators and all that stuff. And to be honest, I never really felt super creeped out down there in all the different environments we were in Florida, knowing that there are these snakes and gators and all that kind of stuff. I mean, granted, it was really cold when we were there, not just that weekend we were in the Panhandle where it was like 20 something degrees. But I never really felt that creepy factor that you usually get when I'm in the mountains. There's a little bit more of a tangible kind of threat feeling, knowing, especially up in my areas up here where we got huge ass moose
That's what I'm scared of.
Yeah, that's the stuff that's a little more disconcerting. I never felt as creeped out. I mean, even walking around in the water at night with like your muck boots on in Florida, I it really never felt that creepy. So I think people have this misconception that even at night, it's just everything's out there to kill you, and gators aren't even that threatening. I mean, unless you really mess with one, they're probably not what I'm concerned about in the swamps down there.
Yeah. I'm sorry. Some idiot RPG just sent me something on my phone that was, you shouldn't have done that.
RPG, what are you doing, man?
But yeah, so like I was talking to Moneymaker a few weeks ago, and he's like, well, what do you do if a snake crawls across you? It happens. Like, I'm not going to stop what I'm doing. I'm not scared of these woods.
Yeah.
I'm scared of those woods up there, and it's because I'm not from there.
That's it. I think that's what
You
it
know
is
what I
mostly.
mean?
Yeah, it's the comfort factor. And I thought we would be. I was like, man, we're gonna be freaked out because I've been out in Louisiana before, and it was a lot more creepy than it was down in some of those areas in Florida. I don't know if it's just because I got more experience with being down there, but hogs were something I was a little bit more concerned about.
Right. Well, the hogs are something to be concerned about. Like
Exactly. Yeah.
they
We
will
snuck
come
up
at
on a
you.
few in the green swamp there when we went out there, and at first it was funny. Eli was right in front of me, and we were with this guy Ron, and there was a palmetto, or it was like a dead palmetto way in the distance, and this little trail right there in the green swamp, and there was something moving, and the way from where we were standing, the palmetto looked like it was the top, and there was a hog there at the bottom, but it looked like it was one object, and the bottom was moving, and we're like, oh my god, what is this? We get closer, we realize that it's just a palmetto, and there's a hog even further away that blended together. But I'm like, oh crap, man. And there was a bunch of them in the area, and yeah, those guys are nasty. And for you guys down south, I mean, that's probably the biggest nuisance, dealing with those hogs and snakes, I'd imagine. But
Yeah, well, the yellow jackets I'm not fans of.
bugs too.
Those are the worst because there'll be huge ass nests up under them palmetto leaves, and you'll
Oh,
brush into it not knowing it's there, and you get in a bad situation real quick.
that's no fun. Stevie B says, I hear what sounds more like rock clacking here in Florida than wood knocks. Interesting. Um, Max Power says, I'm in the green swamp right now. There are several live oaks with 3-foot limbs. I'm stepping on the ground. I'm sleeping on the ground. Right on. So yeah, there's definitely places to be able to find dry ground. So I don't think it's impossible. A place like the Everglades is crazy. Oh, Max says, I'm with Ron right now. Awesome. Yeah, tell him I said, hey, cool dude. Total badass, this guy Ron. But anyway, yeah, man, it's been super awesome to have you on. I definitely would like to have you on again at some point in the future. Maybe do like a little roundtable with RPG and some other folks as well. I think that would be a lot of fun. But I do just want to ask, we haven't really talked about it a little bit. Maybe we can do a little conversation on it before we start wrapping up, actually, about the filmmaking side of things. Obviously, you don't just do the Bigfooting stuff. You are into filmmaking. I mean, between Outcast Paranormal and, like I read earlier in your bio, Skunk Ape Lives and all that kind of stuff. What's it like kind of going into that creative world for you?
It's a release. You know what I mean? It's fun. It's really cool to make something like Skunk Ape Lives hit 1 million views on YouTube today, which is a pretty big deal to me.
Wow, that's awesome.
It got stuck in that algorithm on Amazon and they snatched it down.
Yeah,
But to put something out, some art, and people really enjoy it and come and tell you those things, that's really cool. But for me, just to express myself, the things that are going on up here, it's kind of my release from it all, leaving a stamp on the world. You know what
sure.
I'm saying? And it's good to me. I love it. You know what I mean? It's one of my many things that I enjoy.
Oh, it's cool. And I mean, and as our buddy Ryan, as RPG here says, the Skunk Ape is ducking legit. Definitely. No, it's cool because you've been involved. When you get involved in a topic for a while, you obviously you know a lot of people, you meet witnesses along the way. And I thought what was really cool, what I enjoyed about the Skunk Ape Lives was it's like you almost put together not only the story about the thermal footage with your dad, Cliff, that whole investigation, but all the other people kind of along the way in Florida. And I think it's a good way of encapsulating sort of the skunk ape thing in the state of Florida. It's a good representation of Florida Bigfoot.
At the time, there really wasn't nothing on the skunk ape.
Yeah. There's some old stuff, there's the Dave Sealy stuff, but
nothing, no, like a collective. And that's what it was, because a lot of people write books. I'm not that guy.
Right.
You know what I mean? I can still tell the story, but I'll tell it visually. And so that was, my first 7-8 years of research. I took all the best parts and put it into one, and people really enjoyed it. And it's rewarding, I guess. Is just really rewarding to put your stuff out there, and it is what it is. Hey, enjoy it or not, and to put it in a way where people actually love it and then ask you to make a second one and other things like that. It's really makes you want to keep going.
Yeah, it's cool. I mean, it's you like I said, you get involved in a topic and you're sort of preserving whether it's a folklore or some of these stories, some of these people. I mean, it's not going to be there forever, right? So if you get that in there, I mean, that's going to, like you said, you're putting a stamp on the skunk ape topic, and that's what I noticed too. And that's why I reached out to you, and we were obviously doing our thing because we were doing these different kind of approaches. We're doing different chunks of Florida almost, and even down in the Everglades. I mean, the only really stuff there's been is the old In Search Of. I mean, I think it was In Search Of that did a little bit thing on it, but way back in the day. There's the Dave Shealy stuff. He's been on a bunch of those different programs, but there really hasn't been as much, I think, in a sort of collected fashion. So I thought that was really cool. Here's a comment for you from Mark Webster. Says Skunk Ape Lives is my favorite Bigfoot documentary. It's grounded and very, very well edited and out together. Chef's kiss. There you go.
Here's a little secret. I was done with it in 2017. Absolutely hated it. Like, I hated it, and then I re-edited it during COVID and put it out. So
Right
yeah,
on.
and I sat on that movie for like 2 years trying to figure out what to do with it. And then a meeting with RPG in Santa Monica at the American Film Market. He told me, maybe you should do this. And he's like, take it back to square one, do it like Unsolved Mysteries, walk them through it. You're Robert Stack.
Right.
You know what I mean? And I was like, damn, light bulb. And so then I re-edited it, remade it. So
right on. Pamela says, you're both awesome. Stacy is our go-to in our hometown. He's the best. Oh, right on. I guess you guys are in the same area. Very cool. And here's RPG. Stacy Brown Jr. is the charming Florida man. One of a kind. Fake beard, though. Oh, man.
he's throwing it because he can't grow a beard. That's all he's doing.
Not everyone can, man. I saw a comment earlier. I forgot to read it, but it was about saying, "Oh, the beard game is strong tonight." And somebody was saying, "You're going to give me a run for my money with the beard game." And I'm like, "Hey, man, gotta respect if you have the patience to grow it all the way out. I mean, that's it's not easy."
I just let it happen. I've burnt the thing back. I did a controlled burn on it every few years. I'll catch it in a fire when I'm when I eat. I have to tuck this shit into my shirt, and then
otherwise they're gonna have flavors for later hanging out.
Right. I end up looking like one of them dogs that got the poofy hair, and then they get wet and they look like this little rat running around, a rat man.
So here, Kaiju. So Tristan says, I was at the first showing of Skunk Ape Lives in Kennewick, Washington.
Oh, wow. Okay.
That's
yeah.
cool.
So there was I think 500-600 people there for that. And that was a different version.
That was the old version.
Yeah. That was the
pre-COVID.
I didn't put myself in it. I narrated it. And, I hated it. I hated that shit. I was embarrassed to let people watch it. And then all those people are like, man, that movie was so good. It was so good. I'm like, I just can't do it.
It's tough. I mean, as a creative person, it's hard to evaluate your own work too. It's like you have a sort of way of viewing it. And I don't know, sometimes it's.
Well, you're in this, mindset that you can always do better.
Yeah, of course.
You can always keep whittling. And like with the new Outcast Paranormal film, I hate to quit dropping RPG's name in here, but he's a whittler. You have to stop this man and say, hey, bro, at some point we're done with it, right? Like, you're just doing things now because you're bored looking at it the way it is, I guess.
Why not, right? Over evaluating it, maybe.
Yeah. And the people that are watching your products, they're not staring into it like that. So like now I got on this like A24 kick, right? And I don't know if you've seen any of their films, but visually they're amazing. And this is what I want my films to look like, So like that's perfection. Cause like when I went into making the Skunk Ape Lives, Seth Breedlove's films are, they're the cream of the crop. Because you have a bunch of people make films, right? And I'm not saying anything. Go make your art, but
sure.
when you look at it, there's only a few that are really, really good. And Seth set that bar, right? And so when you watch a Skunk Ape live, the cinematography on it is not up there, right? This is me, no film school, nothing like that. The audio is kind of blown out at times. The people don't catch it though. The story brings it up here.
Oh, for sure.
But to me as an artist, I want to be up here. You know what I mean? Because I want my films to look as good as his do, because his films look great, you know. And then that Hellier came out and looks great. You know what I mean? Those guys a little boring for my taste, but hey, this is an ice cream shop. We got all different kinds of flavors.
Exactly.
With the Outcast Paranormal thing, this new project we're about to launch, it looks like that.
Yeah, it looks awesome.
What I mean?
Effects, all that stuff. It's really on point. I mean, I enjoyed that first episode, and I caught a little bit of the. That's not the full one, the Sitonga one, right? I don't know if I'm pronouncing.
No. That's just our YouTube stuff.
Yeah, right.
But the one we premiered down there at the conference, the Skunk Ape Experiments.
Yeah.
That one, just like the quality of the shots.
It was awesome.
And so, in my head at the beginning, I'm like, all right, cool, one-man band. I do all this by myself. I have my buddies help me out. You know, we'll have fun. But at some point, you have to realize I ain't worth shit with a camera. I can press record, you know what I'm saying? But my boy Edward Mong, Joey Badia, let me bring in people who are way better than me. You know what I mean? To know, like, I don't need to know everything.
Again, it's a collaborative effort. It's like with the Bigfoot research thing, yeah.
Like Bill Brock, great at doing audio. Let me bring him in so I can have solid audio. And I got these guys, let me bring them in and have solid camera shots. And then I got RPG coming in here. Now I got a solid producer who's done this commercially for TV.
Yeah.
And all around me, like I was talking about with the Bigfoot community, we all got our strong points. Let's all work together. And so that's what Outcast Paranormal is. It's like, I'm just bringing all these guys in. They're my friends, and I still got my other friends who are helping out and hanging out and doing investigations and stuff. But we can make a really, really good looking product that looks like we spent $100,000 on it, you know, and then you didn't at the end of the day. And, you know, so like the Small Town Monsters, you know, I have to hats off, because they set that bar for me, you know, so I could push myself to do better, to where I could finally get a product that looked that good. You know what I mean? And the story, because I don't have a problem telling the story. I had a problem backing off and admitting that I wasn't the best at everything.
Yeah, I think, you know, some of that comes from, and I've seen this with a little bit older folks in the community that are also doing, you know, videos and filmmaking kind of stuff, is that and maybe people have a TV experience, is that there's that constant competition sense, right? Everyone's competing, right? If this person, either not your friend or whatever, maybe they even are your friend, but they're still competition to you, because they're still looking at it from that TV ratings mentality, where it's all about, my program has to come out on top. Whereas I think now we're in a space where it's us independent creators that are basically up against these gigantic corporations that want to crush us at all moments. I think it's cool to prop up the other guys. I want other people to come into this space. You know, if they're looking at the subjects, honestly, they're just having fun with it, they're doing what they want to do. I mean, I think it's cool. I don't want to just see them as a target to be taken down. Unless they present themselves in that, which is different. I mean,
well, you know, so like people don't like Finding Bigfoot, jealous, hatred, or whatever.
Yeah,
Finding Bigfoot paved the way for a lot of things.
Set the stage.
They brought a lot of people into this, and you know, I want my films to be as good as Breedlove's. And what he's done is brought a lot more people into this. So when my films do get as good as what Breedlove's done, now I've got this audience that he's brought into this world. These people like this should never be hated, because, hey, we're not competition. We're doing completely different things. I'm making a truck. You're making a fast sports car. They're not the same. We can sell both of them. You know what I'm saying? Like there's room for all of us up here. There's all kinds of different flavors of ice cream, like I said, and there's something that fits every single one. But you have people like the Finding Bigfoot,
Yeah.
and Small Town Monsters that just bring these people into the realm
Yeah.
to where it will benefit me.
Well, it's amazing. I mean, since we've been doing the Beyond the Trail, and even before, as you talked about with Small Town Monsters, just seeing over the years people that are not into the Bigfoot topic, they're not into cryptozoology, they're just getting into it. They're in the outdoors community, they're hikers, they're backpackers, they're into this and that, and they're kind of looking at the subject. I think it's awesome that they're more open minded and considering it, because you're having other people, from even academic backgrounds that are maybe coming into it, just all walks of life, and I think that's really neat. I think the more the wider the net gets cast, the more stories and reports we get as well, which I think at the end, yeah, it's like more encapsulating, because some of my favorite reports that I've read come from non-Bigfoot sources. I mean, it's outside the community, right?
The more people into this topic, not only from a Bigfooter standpoint, but from a filmmaker standpoint, is better for everybody. You know what I mean? Because the audience here is far larger than it was 10 years ago.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And that's going to help us out with getting reports, getting people to open up. So technology is helping out, and, there's a few things that are paving the way, and I think we'll get there, and maybe to more of an acceptance.
Yeah, that's I think a big, cultural shift. I noticed that, obviously Bigfoot is this sort of mascot that's everywhere, right? Almost all places and states now have Bigfoot in their state parks and all this kind of stuff. And it's just it's a great thing to get people also just focused on the outdoors, get them out there. But like you said, bringing those reports forward, making it more comfortable. I mean, I've seen an area like up here in the Northeast where 10, 15 years ago, I mean, nobody would be caught dead talking about a Bigfoot. I know people who have stories that they've sat on for decades, because even if they had a slight idea about Bigfoot, it was only ever in the Pacific Northwest or Fouke, Arkansas with the Boggy Creek monster. It was so far away, people that thought maybe they were just seeing a monster, not even a Bigfoot, until years later. And then things like, even in the chat, Brian and Chewy in the chat, this guy had an experience, and it wasn't until years later that he sort of said, well, maybe this is what I experienced, completely confused about what was happening. And, I was like using Brian as an example, a guy that I know. But yeah, it's definitely, the times are changing for sure. And I mean, the way the world is heading, as we talked about earlier, it's definitely kind of scary with like this technocracy thing going on. But I don't know. I'm focused on what I'm doing now with this kind of stuff. And I think that's all we can really control at the end of the day, is sort of our own journey, our own experience. And
it's the only place you'll find the truth.
Yeah, right.
Is on your own journey, because on that television, turn that shit off. Like, do yourself a favor. Quit letting it raise your blood pressure. Quit letting them tell you what you need to be in the boat with. Do your own journey. We'll all be better off, because the people that are in control of things, they ain't in your best interest. They're trying to make a buck.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And so just watch more cryptid content. You can find a lot of that at Bigfoot Stacy.
For sure. Yeah.
You know what I mean? On YouTube. So I mean,
totally. And we'll throw in all your stuff in the description, of course. I'll put your channel in there, and that's probably the best place for people to find something like Skunk Ape Lives, right? And Outcast Paranormal actually has its own channel too, right?
Yeah, we got our own channel. And we got our first film. We just got the notes for the finish edit. We're going to make one more pass on it, but it's done. We're just tightening it up, because like we talked in earlier, attention spans are like that. And so that affects my filmmaking right now. Like, every scene is like, got to be balls to the wall. You gotta leave them wanting more. And the funny thing about our film is, like, we based the edit off of 90 Day Fiance. Because and it just plays really well, because you got these three different couples who are all going through their little things. It's like 3 to 5 minute segments. They always leave you, oh my God, what's happening next? And then you roll into the next segment, and then it's the same thing. So every 5 minutes, you're re-grabbing the person's attention until you get to the end, and then you blow their mind absolutely at the end. And because The only thing people are going to hate about this film is the ending, because it's going to leave you what happened. You know what I mean? Like, why did you end it like that? Now I've got to wait for the next one to come out. So
Sure.
it's a trilogy. It was all manipulated. The edit was like to grab your attention.
Sure.
Because our thing, all of us as outcasts, we've been on the networks. You know,
sure.
we've been there. We've heard the people tell us to say things, and we're
Yeah.
not those people, and that's why we're not still on the television. We don't play ball. And the problem with that is the networks, they are a bank, right? So they
Mhm.
loan money out to these production companies, and they expect a return on their profit. Well, so how can they guarantee a return on their profit? Oh, we're gonna find this, this, and this. We're gonna find chimp DNA in Kentucky.
Yeah. Right.
You know what I'm saying? So like, they've got these guarantees going to the bank. Now they feel comfortable in giving that loan out. They're so scared that if you just let guys go on an investigation, that they're not going to be able to have content that's entertaining.
Which is just mind-boggling to me. That's such an old school mentality, because
It is.
And not to cut you off, but just to kind of add on to that, I mean, you look at what's going on now, and there's a couple comments I think that are addressing that too. That the TV, the thing is, we're competing with these guys. We are basically competing with the stuff on TV. We're doing it, and we're not beholden to them, right? And you've been around TV. I mean, you know how it's like, and the obvious hoaxing and the fabricating of stuff and putting stuff in there that is just not at all truthful, just for the sake of retaining that audience. But in some cases, I think we're doing better than they are, and we're doing it on our own terms. We are our own. Dude. We're not beholden to some exec saying, well, I understand you want to have a truthful investigation, but I think if you put in a thermal footage of a Bigfoot, that might get people's attention. That's like, hell no, screw that.
Yeah, at the end of the day, I still got my integrity.
Exactly.
And I promise you, when all y'all out there see this film, our shit's way more entertaining than what's on television.
Right.
Like, we actually, I'm so proud of it because we did it. You know what I mean? It's like, I can sit back and watch it, and I'm like, man, that's really good, and it's one of the first times I've ever felt like that about one of my films I've made, honestly, because I'm a bad critic on myself. Like, Before the Skunk Ape Lives is like this movie I made with Wayne Wilson. I just made this film about him.
That was such a good one. I love that.
And people loved it. I was like, why? I don't get it, but
because it's like a character study. I like films like that personally. So I mean, and it's you're not saying that everything going on here. You as a filmmaker are not saying this is 100% real. This is real to him. Like, this is his story. This is his journey.
And that was another issue with that film. I was like, why are you putting this hoaxer on here? They think he's a hoaxer. It's like, listen, bud, he's not lying. He may be wrong.
Sure.
He ain't lying, but that ain't the point of the film.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, and that's what I had to tell him. I'm like, dude, you are one of the most interesting people I ever met. Yeah. Why don't you just let me make the film about you? Because
that's the thing. I mean, so many times, and I've said this so many times to Seth and others too that are on the filmmaking side. I mean, we, obviously a lot of us are actually researching and trying to find some sort of truth or talk about, honest research and what's going on out there. But you could just step back from that and just do documentaries about the characters involved and the people and that sort of side of it, because it's just, there's so many interesting characters. There really is.
Come here. My girlfriend's staring around. Say hello. This is my girlfriend Jessica. She just got home.
How's it going?
Yeah, she's sitting here trying to peek over the computer. I'm like, just come around and look.
So here's a good comment from Jonathan at Western Bigfoot Exploration. He says, my opinion, nowadays podcasts and films are the way information is best shared and also exposed to a bigger, broader audience. I've learned a ton about areas, terrain, reports, history from people's movies. And Kevin follows up with, agreed, TV media is dying, podcasting and YouTube is taking over. Yeah, it really is in a lot of ways. I mean, and I think that scares a lot of those big companies that, a couple dudes with cameras can run around the woods and do what they can do with a big crew that's out there stomping around and faking stuff on camera.
Right. Seriously, we made this film for like 15 grand, more or less. And yeah, they're spending $300,000-$400,000 on an episode of Ghost Adventures or Expedition Bigfoot or any of these other shows. And like, honestly, you could air ours right after that. The quality is there.
Yep.
It can be done. And another thing that's going to help us, and it helps y'all. It helps. It's the people want the truth nowadays. This is why you see the fake news and all that, the disinformation, all that. People just want the truth. They don't give a damn for your glitz and glamour.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, you don't have to woo us with this, that, and the other. Just like, as long as it's entertaining, they really are going to respect somebody that's just telling the truth, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because freedom of speech, even though it's going away, it's going to be the most coveted thing that there will be in 10 years besides unvaccinated sperm, which I will be selling here soon by the gallon. But yeah, for real, dude, it's a truth movement. And that, I think that's what it gives.
Well, I mean, there's videos out there that people just walk around the woods, film themselves talking, and like they get
4 million plays,
tons of stuff, you know. So it's I think people, and just the way, and I think that scares some of those power structures, and you know, whether or not TV is like you know, trying to control a narrative or not. I mean, certainly they are, because they're beholden to their investors and all that sort of stuff. So they can't control that, essentially, and that's what basically the proliferation of the internet allowed for people to get out there and talk about these things. And when reality TV came into the picture, and really, I mean, you had some of those TV programs in the past, I think, were much more honest in looking at the subject. Some of the stuff that maybe we grew up on was just dissipated after Jersey Shore and all that stuff, right?
Yeah, Jersey Shore, Honey Boo Boo, the Kardashians.
Yeah. It's cheaper to make that kind of show where it's not about doing all these expensive DNA tests. It's about the people out in the woods and you know, like having fights in the woods. And I mean, you know, you've been on a show where I'm sure they instigated drama between people for dramatic effect, because that's just what they do. And people are sidestepping that and saying, well, no, we want to go back to more of that honest approach. And clearly, I mean, we've seen that come to fruition with a lot of the stuff that's out there. I mean, whether it's stuff you guys are doing, Small Town Monsters, Mountain Beast Mysteries. I mean, there's a lot of folks that are doing, I think, really, really good work and are actually staying true to the subject and true, you know, just true to themselves, as opposed to just selling out. I mean,
well, like, so there's another, the only reason TV's still holding on is because people want to believe. It's like when you had the AFC Championship game this year, and you know, you had the Chiefs and the Bengals. There were people that were around that watched because they thought they wanted to believe the Chiefs would win. You know what I mean? They really wanted to see the Chiefs win, but everybody knew that the Bengals were going to take it. And everybody also knew that Culver's was not a good fast food restaurant. And I'm just making a dig here.
Yeah. So here's Tate's comment. Stacy Brown sucks. Dolphins suck too. And Florida Panther. There you go. Yeah. No. Awesome to have Tate pop in here towards the end. But yeah, so right on. You want to take another quick question about the California thing?
Yeah.
Tristan asked, can Stacy quickly talk about the one he saw in California? What happened? I know I was going to ask you about that, but we sort of glossed over that, but whatever.
So after a One Bigfoot bounty, it got really popular. And Bigfoot Evidence, the old website, it's not up no more. I think it's squatchable, but Bigfoot Evidence was the go-to. You know, they had the Justin Smea story, right? Well, they were holding an expedition, and because of the show, I knew Justin. I liked Justin.
He was on it, yeah.
You know what I mean? Justin, me and Justin had a lot of great times together. He played guitar too. You know what I mean? He knew about the woods. He was a hunter.
Yeah.
Like, you know, but he had this story, which he always told the same. I will give him that. So anyways, they did an expedition at the kill site. And so we went up there, and there were no animals at that elevation. So once everybody left, which, funny story, I'll tell this story real quick. Justin was the DNR there was constantly watching him. Right after
a lot about that stuff.
Yeah, they raided his house twice looking for this Bigfoot stuff. So If it was a lie, why were they so interested in it? You know what I'm saying? But anyways, he makes the post on social media, says, I'm picking up Stacy Brown and Megan Fox from the airport right now. This expedition's going to be huge. Now, this is when Megan Fox had tweeted that she was going to be the one to find Bigfoot. She was all into Bigfoot.
Right.
We go back, then we come down the mountain one day into Silver City, get some supplies from the store and head back up. And there must have been 40 DNR at the campsite.
Oh, so you were there when that happened?
Oh yeah, I was there, and they thought Megan Fox was there, you know, so it was clear that they were watching him. It was kind of funny, you know, because it was just a big gag.
I've heard him tell that story, yeah. So I actually didn't know you were there, which is pretty interesting.
It was insane, man. Because and then they're like all up in your grill, and they were really aggressive. You know what I mean? Like they were hoping to do something for whatever reason. I don't know. Like, how are you getting your rocks off on this, dude? Like, when I was a child, I wanted to be FWC, which is basically what DNR is here.
Yeah.
But I ain't going to be able to write you a ticket for a short red fish. How am I going to be able to, like, as long as you ain't gigged a manatee, I think we all right with you. You got too many fish in that. It's cool, bud. I didn't see it, man. You know what I'm saying? Like,
right.
I'm not that person. But these guys were.
They're like the super, yeah.
Yeah, they're going to rat your ass out to the British, you know? So, anyways, that was that story. But so we stayed there through the expedition, and then we went down to another area, which was, this was around 6,000 feet elevation. The kill site, I think it's like 7,400 feet elevation.
Wild.
And this is where all the game was, right? So, it's feed time. We're heading out, and we're walking down this dirt road, and we see these little bitty cubs up in a tree. Right now, we had just treed a bunch of bears, right? Like Justin, we seen this like cubs and the mama, and Justin's like, "Hey, let's run at them and bark, and they'll tree themselves." So we run at them and we're barking, and they go up the tree. Well, mama only goes about halfway up and comes back down and takes off. And then she realizes her cubs are behind us. And then she turns around, stands up, roars, and comes back at us. So we just got out of that moment. And we're like, all right, cool. Let's therm these bears. Let's get really close to them and therm them so we can have great thermal bear footage. It's not really existing today. At the time, I had a top-of-the-line thermal scope. You know, he had a really good one he had got from Wally. So it kind of like made a little trail like this. There's a big bunch of bushes there, and I'm running my damn mouth, right, talking to Justin. And he grabs me by the shoulders like, bear, 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 and starts backing up. So I turn to book it, and I look behind me, and this thing just stands up, right? It like blocks out the damn sun. I don't know how wide it was. I can't be accurate, but it had to be, you know what I mean, like 4 foot across. This thing was massive, way different than the one I've seen in Florida. The one in Florida was lanky, nasty, looked like a thing off a Boggy Creek cover. Right. You know what I mean? This thing, absolute different. You know, looked like it would just pulverize you. So it turns and runs, and there's like this field there with these trees in it that are like 4 foot tall, right? Or these little bushes, some kind of bush. I don't want to mess up the name. We get to see this thing running across this field for probably 5 seconds. And I've got the thermal in my hand, and I think I'm filming it. And I'm looking at it. I'm looking at it with my eyes now. This is daytime. And I'm filming the ground. Right? Disappointing. But whatever. This thing runs down, crosses the road, and runs down this hill that I promise you, we couldn't go down at that speed without seriously hurting ourselves and falling off the cliff that's at the bottom of that.
Wow.
It just tears off. And I just remember thinking this is the fastest animal on earth. But it was so much taller than those 4 foot shrubs. And we went back later that afternoon and found tracks. But I was like, hell yeah, we filmed it. And then it dawned on me that, no, you wasn't filming nothing. I literally filmed the ground. And so we didn't talk for probably 3 hours. Like he was so upset. I was so upset with myself. Like, you know what I mean? Like, there's no bigger critic of me than me. And I know Justin was pissed with me. He didn't say nothing, but like, dude, I wanted to puke, man. I was like, you're an idiot. Like, I just in my head, I'm just like, oh my God. And, but it was amazing. I was so glad I got to see it, but it could have been a lot more. It could have been a lot better. And I know Justin has a reputation. Most of the people hate him because he says he killed one or whatever. Yeah. But you know what? I did see a Bigfoot with him, and there ain't nothing. Nobody's ever going to be able to convince me otherwise. That was not a man in a suit. There was nobody out there. You know what I mean? This was like a Tuesday or a Monday or something. It was during the week because the expedition ended on a Sunday. So it was definitely amazing. You know, the thing was so big.
Interesting.
So massive.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I think that's got people interested now in the Justin story. If you want to take just this question, Brian and Chewy, he says, does Stacy believe what Justin did? Do you think he was treated fairly in the couple of shows he did?
Absolutely not. You know what I mean? A lot of people wanted a villain. You know, they wanted to make Bigfooters look stupid. If you want Bigfooters to look stupid to the rest of these normies, as I like to call them, people that if the system crashed tomorrow could not live in the woods, who would you look for? You look for one of those people that can live in the woods. Justin's it. You know what I mean? So perfect. He's got this story how he murdered these two Bigfoot, possibly killing the third one because he killed the rest of the family.
Right.
You know what I mean? And he's got a big dip in his mouth and his sleeves are cut off and his jeans are tucked into his boots. The guy looks stupid. Perfect guy. We can get on here because I got news for y'all. Travel Channel, Discovery Channel, History Channel. None of them executives believe in Bigfoot. No, of course one. Not. They only believe in the US dollar.
Right.
You know? So when you have that, they are going to make fun of you and they're going to make Bigfooting look stupid as they can for as long as they can because, you know, and then they'll throw you something that they're acting like it's serious and you think it's all serious, but it's actually a load of shit too. You know, so I think he was treated unfairly by the TV shows, but that's what happens when you put your name out there.
Right.
It comes with the territory. I do believe he's telling the truth. I've asked him the story 100 times at all different times. I've asked him details that he, you know, may slip up on, and he tells the story the same. He may not be a good person if that's what you want to consider poachers. I've poached, right? Like, you know what I mean? This is our land.
There is I mean, people want to see the documentary "Killing Bigfoot." Was that the name of it? The Road.
Yeah.
One? Yeah,
it was really good. I watched it not long ago.
It's a great documentary. Yeah, I think he released it fairly recently, didn't he? Or maybe it's been out on YouTube for a while. I don't know.
I found it on YouTube. Like, seriously, if you got an hour, that's a really good film. You know what I mean? And he passed a lie detector tests. It doesn't mean nothing, but and that's what people say. Oh, well, anybody pass a lie detector test, and then they turn around and say, well, Bob Hieronymus failed a lie detector test.
Yeah, it's a double standard, right?
You can't have it both ways there, but
sure. No, and Jonathan brings it up, and he's spent a lot of time actually with Justin out there in the Sierras, and he said, I've camped with Justin several times in the Sierras. Say what you want about a story. He's a very nice guy. Oh, it's Justin, Dead Bigfoot by Rose Sahidi.
Oh, Dead Bigfoot. Yeah, but Justin will give you a shirt off his back. Like, seriously.
Yeah.
If your car's broke down on the side of the road and Justin drives by and it's the middle of nowhere, he's going to stop to help you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, he is one of these people who are like the old timers. Back when this society meant something to help out your fellow man and stuff like that. And he got railroaded by the Bigfoot community because, don't kill a Bigfoot. Don't kill a Bigfoot. I got news for all y'all. You're not going to prove it without killing one or finding a dead body.
Yeah.
They're just not going to let you have it. And then even at that point, they still may put it up under the rug. You can't fault the man for killing it. So what? He shot it. He didn't shoot you. He didn't break no law. There are no laws against killing a Bigfoot.
No, I think a lot of people just get so emotionally invested in the idea that these are forest people that are humans, that they're forest friends, right, and that kind of thing. And I think
Right?
there's a lot of people that delude themselves with that, and we don't know that. I mean, maybe they are, but it doesn't. I don't know. They don't they don't act like other people.
This is double standard here as well. They're forest friends, but they're a flesh and blood animal that lives in the woods. Let me tell you about flesh and blood animals that live in the woods. Go pick up a cute furry raccoon.
Right.
A dude will tear your ass to pieces, bro. Like there ain't nice and cuddly in the woods. Even the squirrel will bite you.
Oh,
you know what I'm saying? There is no forest friends.
Let alone a panther or a moose or something. And I see this all the time where I'll see on some of these Facebook groups, people will post, walking up, or I've seen it in person in national parks, people walking up to elk, or, you hear these stories about these tourists in Africa that'll get out of their car to go take a selfie with a lion laying there in a preserve. And it's like, that's part of that thing we're talking about. People have lost the instinct. I mean, it's like the danger is not there. They don't understand that. It's totally crazy.
It's people should stay home. Like seriously, if you're coming at it from a forest friends, like I pray that you don't get hurt, because hey, that out there in the forest, that's how life was meant to be. And if you're not bigger,
dog, man.
Yeah, exactly. If you're not bigger than something or faster than something,
you're done.
Then that means it's coming to eat you. Everything that's smaller than you and slower than you can eat. The things that are faster and bigger than you got to hide from. There ain't no forest friends.
Right. There's a reason why we as humans, an individual human against a big predator is usually not going to stand a chance. But back in the day, that's why we use what we have up here to be smarter than what's out there, because we can't physically match. I mean, just look at stuff like gorillas and chimps, how much stronger the average chimp, which is smaller than like an adult male, how much stronger they are. Totally crazy. So yeah, people just need to really educate themselves about being out in the woods. And as somebody I've seen insane stuff hiking and backpacking in the Appalachian Mountains that you just wonder, how are these people functioning? They come out to the woods and they do this stuff that people die. It's not a joke, but people just I don't know. They're so desensitized.
The scary thing is apparently there's 81 million of them. If you get my drift there, there's 81 million of these people running around in this country right now, according to the numbers.
Worldwide. I mean, it's even scarier. Yeah. Totally wild. Well, last question for you. James Brost. Is it true that James is the only outcast member that can grow a beard?
I actually believe it is. You know what I mean? Like,
come on, James. We want to see bearded James.
I don't think we will. It's just like,
come on.
It's that rite of passage, like becoming a man. He's still not there. Like it might be a disability. He could probably get a check for it if he worked it, the right way with the government. It's probably a disability at this point. But his arms are jacked, dude. He's like, whoa. I was talking to him. I was like, hey, man, I'm benching 165 now, all proud. He's like, yeah, I'm doing like 350.
That's cute, like, right?
Yeah, me and my little noodle arms are gonna go back to bed now. Thanks for ruining my day, Dick.
No, but you guys are a good bunch of dudes. You're hell of a time out in the woods, in the field. I mean, that could have been a miserable time when we were out there in the Panhandle. It was, the coldest weather in 4 years or whatever, 25 something degrees. Could have been really sucky, but it was a lot of fun. We had a blast with you guys.
Yeah, we're serious. We do it, but we have fun. Like, because if I can't have fun doing it, I don't want to mess with it.
That's exactly it. Yeah, and if you take yourself too seriously, I mean,
you get old quick.
Yeah, and laughing is good for you, believe it or not. Having jokes is very it's healthy, believe it or not.
All right.
But anyway, yeah, right on, man. Well, it's been awesome to have you on, bro.
Yeah, man, I appreciate you letting me spew my info to the world. Maybe next time we can talk about why the Earth's flat.
Let's do it. We'll do some kind of we'll do a little panel discussion.
Yeah, I got to bring Eli on because he'll hit me up every now and then. He's like, "Hey, dude, I think you're right. I think it is flat." Ever since that trip, man, he's like, so what? That's all he wanted to talk about on the trip was
Yeah,
flat
and
Earth.
I remember because I was, and we'll have to have you on. I want to do a little bit of a Patterson Gimlin discussion too. That'd be
Oh, for
interesting
sure. I
because I
love
know
that.
you have some pretty interesting feelings about it, and people would probably be surprised. So yeah, I think there's a lot we could talk about. But I remember Eli, he was like, I kept asking about the PGF stuff, and he was like, oh, I wanted to find out about flat Earth. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Well, see, it's fun. We can have these conversations about controversial topics and not need to go crazy about it or be accusing each other of being idiots or something. I mean, we talk about it like adults. Why not?
Yeah, I mean, hey, it's enjoyable. That's the whole thing. Like, I may not know these things until I speak with you, and then that's why my views will change. You know what I'm saying? So you learn stuff from people. You don't have to agree with it, but yeah, it's fun to listen.
Absolutely. Well, thanks to everyone in the comments. People saying, here you go. Tate, Stacy keeps busting my balls during the playoffs. Yeah, well, there's that. But
Because I predicted it, Tate. I predicted it. I gave you a hug before we left and told you how I was sorry.
we both felt bad. Yeah. So, but anyway, thanks again, man. And thanks to everyone in the comments, your questions, all that sort of stuff, conversations. Glad to see everyone around. As I mentioned, I think I said at some point, maybe I don't know if I said at the beginning, but next week we'll be having on Tristan, who's been commenting. He's the Kaiju Ninja profile. He's been asking a lot of questions and comments. As always, appreciate Tristan. We'll having him on. He's got some of the freakiest audio I've heard. We're going to be listening to the full 15, 16-minute clip and then discussing it. We'll also have Jay Birch on. He was he kind of knows that area too, and he wanted to come on and talk about it as well. So, and as I mentioned at the beginning of the show too, check out the link below for the GoFundMe for Leon Thompson's recovery. He really went through the ringer there with his experience, at the ICU, and people are just trying to help him out. So if you can help him out, with rent and that kind of stuff, he's still in the recovery process. So there's a link to that right below. But aside from that, thanks everyone again. This has been Sasquatch Out of the Shadows Live, and we'll see you guys all next week. Have a good rest of your week.